Highguard has become one of the more interesting stories so far in 2026 for me because the entire game's existence could be summarized as a single flash of brilliant lightning. A game that was not known to suddenly existing, releasing to almost 100,000 players on Steam immediately, only for that flash of lightning to subside and be reduced by over 90% in the next following hours. I've never really seen a game rise so quickly and fall in such a small period of time. Usually these things happen over the course of months, not a day or two. It's usually like how it always goes with stuff like Battlefield 6, right? Big numbers that start to fall off as time goes on, but Highguard, it's just sinking. And the developers are getting really desperate for players to come back before it's all too late for them. Because remember, this is a game built by former Titanfall and Apex Legends developers that launched with massive hype, only to then be met with overwhelming backlash within hours of release, like everyone tore into this online. The Steam reviews went mostly negative immediately. Social media became a battlefield pretty much of defenders versus the people who already decided to walk away forever. But something interesting then happened next. Access media outlets and high-profile people started defending the game on social media too, urging restraint and perspective from players. Even as the Highguard team itself, they seemed much more concerned with winning players back than really even celebrating their launch success. Because let's be real, you can't really be popping champagne bottles saying, hey, we released our game and it's a hit, when 90% of the people that showed up already have decided to walk away before that day was even over. Of course, recently Highguard did add a 5v5 mode to the game, which was bizarrely labeled as limited time, which is kind of ironic for a game that might not even exist before the event is even over to have the balls to say that in the first place. And look, the 5v5 mode, I will say in Highguard, it does improve their game, mostly because it allows for more chaos on the map and more targets to shoot. I'm going to be positive here and say yes, this was a good change for them, but either way, with 5v5 or 3v3, it still isn't enough to fix the problems at the core of this game, which is that regardless of how many people you add to the map, there still isn't enough shooting to be had on a constant basis here. You're still wasting minutes of a match running around collecting crystals and opening chests. And I was reading some comments on random Highguard posts saying, why does it matter that the game wastes time on the gathering phase alone? It's because it's an online shooter, guys. A minute or two is an eternity in a game like this, especially when it's new. And every precious second you need to convince the players why they should come back for another round or 5 other games or play it a month from now too. There's a reason why in Marvel Rivals, after you choose your hero, you're met with a ton of people to shoot or attack almost immediately. Why in Call of Duty, bullets begin flying a mere 10 seconds into any given online match. You need to engage the user immediately, or they're going to leave for a better game. I mean, it is what it is. It's like watching a YouTube video, or a movie even. If the first minute doesn't engage you, you're not going to stay, and I don't blame you. The problem with Highguard is that they hide the actual meat of the game, the shooting, the destructibility, and the use of your powers to the later half of every match. And not everyone is going to wait what they have played prior to that was so boring and dry. Think of it this way, okay? First impressions are obviously everything, and Highguard keeps screwing that part up, which is why 90% of their players have left already. As seen here on Steam charts, Highguard, as I'm writing this, is sitting at almost 12,000 users, a jump from 8,000 following the 5v5 update, so that's good for them. That's a positive change. But this article here from Bloomberg was what I wanted to focus on this video, where the Highguard devs spoke to Jason Schreier over there at Bloomberg about how they are pretty much desperate to win back their players after such a messy launch. As that title reads, the game's dramatic launch, yeah, that's definitely one way of putting it. The baffling part is how Bloomberg even reported in their own article where they spoke to Highguard's devs on how they viewed the game. As Bloomberg said about Highguard being the final reveal at the Game Awards as seen here, viewers were baffled that this was the night's final announcement, scoffing that the trailer was trite and generic. The game seemed destined to get lost in the sea of multiplayer games that look just like it. Like, things are bad when even Jason Schreier, the guy who defended Dragon Age Veilguard at launch, can't even muster up the energy to defend Highguard. Jason saw this game and likely thought to himself, yeah, this might not do too well, will it? Even the chief executive officer at Wildlight, the developers behind Highguard, whose name is Dusty Welch, which honestly sounds like a Fortnite landmark, said as seen here, we didn't do a great job with our trailer, we owe that. Again, and they need to remind you that Highguard's devs have admitted in the past that they did their own marketing for the game too. This entire thing was also self-published by Wildlight, so they are not beholden to any such publisher when it comes to demands or what they they can or can't do with their game, which is actually a big win for a team like this because it allows for changes to happen much more quicker, which is why you already have that 5v5 mode I spoke about earlier. Either way though, Highguard, it needs a lot more, way more to bring their players back. They need to just take the castle maps and turn them into team deathmatch or domination modes at this point, spawn a team on each side and have players use their powers to destroy the environment as they all try to shoot each other. You already have the A, B, and crystal points present in the siege mode, just use those as your domination points. But either way, this still won't fix the gun economy because the way it's built, guns can't exactly be different from any other, as in attachments and whatnot. Instead, the only difference is just rarity, right? Gray, blue, purple, orange, you get the idea. So either way, there's nothing to really chase there besides skins on your guns, I guess. But that was something Bloomberg doesn't even touch upon in this article, which is honestly frustrating, because the game as it stands right now has barely anything to chase that makes this grind even worth it in the first place. But like most gaming journalists who hate their audiences these days, Jason Schreier also couldn't help himself to villainize the people who speak out against such games because they have voices. Dusty Welch, that Fortnite-sounding developer, spoke on how they wanted to shadow drop the game in the first place, but instead went for the trailer at the Game Awards instead. But here's where Jason Schreier weaponizes all of this, as it reads here. In retrospect, that may have been a mistake. In the weeks after it was announced, Highguard became a punching bag for a cavalcade of fire-breathing pundits and video makers calling it the next Concord, a reference to the infamous Sony flop that was taken down less than 2 weeks after it launched. Ah yes, Jason, the fire-breathing pundits and video makers. He means content creators, by the way. Jason, we've been over this, man. You can call people like me whatever you want. It's not going to change anything. The difference between me and you is that I'm actually allowed to say what I want here, whereas you need to keep this neutral, everything is great mentality even when it is an attitude. Also, content creators, or just users and players in general, are not pundits or evil people for saying that Highguard is bad. That is a legit reaction to a game that has released and expects players to spend real money and time in this over years. It is not the fault of the users when it comes to the quality of the game, and these developers begging people to come back is a direct response to how poorly that launch went, as Jason and this Dusty guy keep saying to themselves in this article. Sure, we messed up the launch, made a bad trailer, and ruined our forward momentum, but it's the fire-breathing content creators' faults in the end, of course. Oh, my bad. I didn't know I worked at Wildlight, forgot my shift started, and I was somehow involved with the trailer and marketing. How could I forget that part, I guess? You see, what we're witnessing is still one of the worst launches in modern games history happening in real time. Yes, it's doing better than Concord at least, but it still desperately needs to fix itself. And of course, Bloomberg would try to turn this into some culture war moment. Nobody is also, by the way, attacking this game for its character designs or the developers saying some crazy stuff or any harassment like that. This is just a cut and dry, this game is not very good, and for some reason the access media is livid that we're just not eating it up like we're supposed to. There's no way you can swindle this into a success story when Bloomberg, as seen here, just straight up states that this game hit 100,000 users pretty much on Steam and has since dropped to 8,000 or 11,000 now, I guess. Either way, that's like about 90% of a drop and then some. At one point in this interview, this Dusty guy says that he thinks Highguard will probably go the same way Apex Legends did, which this team also worked on. They believe, like Apex, it saw a huge boost at the beginning. People fell off, obviously, things got fixed, and then people came back and it became a healthy game. Now again, I'm not here rooting for Highguard to fail. I just, the meat of this game, I think anyways, is so fundamentally tailored towards one thing that it's honestly going to be extremely difficult to fix these things before long. Your loot is too basic. Your reason to chase things is just cosmetics. You don't even level up your account or level up really anything to reach any sort of milestone. Sure, maybe they're going to launch a battle pass when like episode 1 releases eventually, but either way, you need reasons for people to return now. And what is here currently is the bare minimum, and why would people stay and grind here when they could play Fortnite, Rivals, and more, have way more compelling grinds with plenty of rewards already? Like, this is why I think releasing a new live service game these days is kind of crazy to do. You either have to strike gold like Arc Raiders did, or you're dead pretty much. It's also no wonder why some games that were announced as MMOs have since pivoted themselves to becoming single-player games instead. For example, as seen here, Terminator Survivors was originally an open-world PvP game. Now, it's going to launch as a single-player open-world game instead. Even Crimson Desert, as seen here, was initially announced as a huge, massive open-world MMO meant for thousands of players to play and get lost in. But the creators saw the writing on the wall. They're seeing how these live service games are failing more often than they're not. So now Crimson Desert is also going to be a single player only game, but set in that same massive MMO world they had, but now it's all being created now to be more like The Witcher 3 than, say, World of Warcraft. And honestly, games like Crimson Desert are likely going to be ultra mega success stories because the devs pivoted from always online multiplayer to being a single player RPG. The reason why I bring this up is that it's becoming increasingly clear that just maybe we don't need more live service games being made because, as you've likely already heard before, there's way too many of them. I can't fathom trying to keep up with all the battle passes of every game that releases. Most normal people probably, they just pick like one of these games and stick with one of them, that's it. Like, come on, man, there's only a finite amount of people on this planet that can reasonably play your game anyways and buy your stupid cosmetics and spend their time playing it. So why would I drop all these other games that I want to play to just focus in on Highguard? I wouldn't. I'm not saying Highguard should be single player, although that would be cool since the bones of this game are also so bare already there really isn't much anyways to do like as it is. But let's say if Highguard was a single player open world RPG with maybe co-op dungeons from its inception, where you could level up these heroes and gain cool gear and fight stuff, there could have been something here to play. The thing I've noticed over the past few years about the more successful live service games that have entered the online arena, if you will, is that they aren't necessarily pivoting themselves fully into the PvP space only. Arc Raiders has PvP, yeah, I know that, but a big part of why that game is successful actually is because of its PvE element. It's much more digestible that a single person who plays the game alone can enjoy Arc Raiders because they can play it pretty much essentially like a PvE single player game. Yeah, they're going to have the occasional freak, trying to rob their lemons from their backpacks and their guns, but even look at Helldivers 2 even. Always online, sure, but it's a PvE game, not a PvP one. I guess you can shoot your friends, but realistically, that's not the point of the game, is it? Look at Gaming Bolt's article here, for example. Helldivers 2 has surpassed 20 million units sold already. For a game about shooting bugs, robots, and aliens, that's kind of amazing, isn't it? It's almost as if you don't need to cater to this PvP crowd to be a successful game anymore. And like I said, I'm seeing this trend again and again. Games like Space Marine 2, even Darktide, they're still being updated to this day for a reason. This is why I think Highguard honestly just feels outdated to me, because it's zeroing in on a brand of shooter that is already quickly starting to fall out of style long before this game was even announced. Sure, people want to shoot other players, but the PvE elements of these other live service games are the ones that have huge longevity because it becomes more than just I need to win the match or something. Instead, with Helldivers or Darktide, Arc Raiders, and more, it becomes about I need to survive the game. I need to complete this objective that I'm chasing. I need to extract that thing I want to have before someone else comes and takes it from me because they're like hiding in a bush or something. Highguard, as it currently stands, has no hook to it. It's like a song without a chorus or a movie without a plot. There's no rhyme or reason to any of it currently. There's also no world building to be had. You have no idea who any of these people are, why they're fighting each other, or anything else. All you know is that it is what it is, but that's not good enough. If Highguard was a PvE co-op game with some PvP sprinkled into it, the game would have probably been a mega hit. Instead, this game is basically asking you, hey, play our game. It's just multiplayer PvP, and all you do is blow up a castle and shoot people. Now tell me why I would want to play that over literally anything else that I could play today. Wildlight's design philosophy on how they came to make Highguard was they pulled from TV shows and movies and games like Rust and Quake, as they say here in that Bloomberg article. There was a period of time where every single day the design group had to pitch a new idea, a new vein, a new nugget, a kernel of design of something fun. It could have been 3 words, could have been a paragraph. If something stuck, write something deeper on that for tomorrow. Bloomberg then said this: after a great deal of prototyping and experimentation, the team landed on what they called a raid shooter, a 3v3 multiplayer game, where teams roam large fantasy maps to gear up and try to destroy their opponent's base, smashing enemies and riding horses along the way. All of that prototyping to basically come to the conclusion of what if you collected colored tier weapons and then did search and destroy from Call of Duty, but with Overwatch powers. Like, that's what the game is pretty much. It just isn't enough. If I was wrong, the numbers would have been far higher, but that's not the case, unfortunately. Bloomberg, of course, blames people like me and all of you watching as the real reason as to why Highguard isn't taken off, as it says here. Player feedback has been mixed so far, although it's difficult to tell how much of the criticism has come from sections of the internet that were rooting for the game to fail. I'm sure there are those out there who want this game to fail, but like I said, this is not some culture war talking point here. This is simply the game is not good enough to warrant its own existence. Any whataboutisms will always loop back to the realization and fail to convince me otherwise at this point. Bloomberg then asked Dusty Welch, and I still can't believe that's his real name, about what he wanted to see for Highguard and his team's future. As he says here, one, Dusty wants Highguard to have an esports audience, which in its current state is just not going to happen. And the other thing Dusty wants is to make more story-driven content for the game, which also tells me this game's entire design philosophy was flawed to begin with. Because how are you going to tell me that the people who did Titanfall 2's campaign worked on this game and you wasted their talents on another generic PvP shooter game again like this? The people who did Titanfall 2 should have been able to take this game and create a PvE world that could tell those stories and give quests and have players enjoy an open world with their other friends as they fight monsters and more, leveling up. Like, the gameplay's already there. You could have made basically fantasy Borderlands but without the cringe Reddit humor, and it could have worked. You could have had skill trees for these heroes, new armors and weapons to buy and upgrade, and then you could have had your PvP mode with that siege, like the whole siege thing as like a separate mode that you could go dabble into, like Destiny with the Crucible, to gain new gear and weapons to then use in the world. Instead, you robbed this game of any unique elements and reduced it to what it is instead. It's just a colossal waste of time, and I'm actually sad knowing that the Titanfall 2 people got shafted in a sense again here, man. Like, you had that entire con before, right, about the whole esports audience thing. I don't know what Dusty believes here, because not even like Overwatch can have a thriving esports presence anymore. Most games fail in this regard because it's too expensive to keep it going. What makes you think that Highguard could do what Overwatch, which like clearly inspired your game, is also not able to do too? Highguard is like if Helldivers 2 removed its PvE elements and the game was just a 3v3 Helldivers on like a map running to a base to blow it up. Let's be real, that version of Helldivers 2 would have died and the entire studio would have closed down already. I don't know how else I can say this besides that we have enough PvP only video games for the next like 10 years at least. We don't need more battle royales or battle pass only games. We need more PvE games. We need games where people can come together to explore and relax and enjoy something at their own pace. You could have had fantasy Borderlands with a Skyrim level map to explore with your friends that had an optional siege mode for the PvP diehard players. And then you could have thrown in your battle pass and cosmetics to buy to fund your game and keep it thriving. Like, look at Where Winds Meets, right? Like, that's a weird single player action RPG that is also somewhat of a multiplayer game that allows for story driven content that is fully funded via cosmetics and everything else that's in its store. The point I'm trying to make here is that this was all a colossal waste of time on everyone's parts that were all involved here. Again, I'm not even here celebrating this game's failure. I'm frustrated that they had 4 years of time and all of this talent at their disposal. And they basically went, let's make search and destroy with horses, and they ran with it. Like, that's actually crazy to me, man. They need to actually get feedback from what people want while making games like this in the first place. Because there's no way that people who worked on this played this internally and went, oh yeah, this is going to hit good with people. Like, it's actually crazy. Bloomberg also asked Dusty to reminisce on what they could have done differently. Here's his lengthy response. That's an incredibly fair question, and it's one I ask myself quite a bit. It's one that I'm going to continue to ask myself for a period of time if we are wildly successful. I will still ask myself that because I'm interested in the business side and how we communicate to players and press. And was that the right way? Was there a different way? Was there a better way? And I don't know the answer to that yet today. The toxicity is challenging, and it's debatable whether we would have had more or less of the same by doing the Game Awards. I don't know, and we've never known the answer to that, but I think that's an angle that has to be considered going forward for anyone in game development. I will answer this for you, Dusty. You guys should just take Highguard back to the drawing board. You have the assets, the world design, the mechanics, you have all of that already. You need to expand this game into something that can reasonably exist and live without needing 1 million people signing in every day just to keep the servers live. Like, you say you want story content, but as it stands, none of that would make any sense given that this game is just 2 minutes of collecting resources, shooting people for a few minutes, and then rinse and repeating over and over again. Would have been nice to have quests in the world, actual people to talk to, learning, oh, I don't know, how did Atticus gain his lightning powers? Why is he so valiant? Why is Kai able to use ice? Where does his powers come from? Why the blonde guy whose name I forgot can control fire in the first place? Why are these people all able to wield these incredible powers? Like, who gave them to them? What is the origin of the crystals? Why is any of this happening? I don't know. I can't answer that because this game feels like I'm being thrown into season 3 of a show, but there's no plot. They are labeled wardens, for example, in the game. Wardens of what exactly? Why am I blowing up this other castle? What does this even accomplish? Why are we fighting in the first place? I have no answers for you because there are no answers in the game itself right now that I'm aware of. All I know is I have to mine crystals, open chests, and shoot people to blow up a castle for some reason. It kind of feels like I missed some big cutscene explaining everything and now things are just happening. playing, like hilariously, even Jason Schreier is seen here at the end of his own article. He says that he's going to be playing Neo next, a Metroidvania, which I got a code for that game too, but I haven't played it myself. But still, even Jason, he can't even bring himself to even play Highguard in an article where he spoke to the people who made the game. He can't even throw them a bone to lie a little and say, yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing Highguard today, guys. Trust. Like, it's so bleak. But as Gaming Bible says there in their article, Highguard's rating has been raised at least to mixed from mostly negative on Steam, which is good. That's a good change to see. Hopefully they can turn this around. And I decided to check the Steam charts again as I was writing this. As you can see, they've now broke just over 12,000 players on Steam right now. Like, okay, I mean, not amazing, but you know, it's better than nothing, I guess, right? Again, contrary to what Jason Schreier believes, I don't like to see games fail. I said this in other videos before. My more popular videos are about me celebrating games. I want Highguard to be good because if a game is good, then it has legs. It has that longevity. There is content to be made. There will be guides that can be made and tier lists and updates on what the devs add. Like, there's life to that, you know? I'm not going to write off the game fully yet, but I'd be lying if I said I still don't care enough to come back to play it still. I need a reason to actually chase something, and I'm not sorry, but a skin on a gun isn't enough for me to care. Even Gaming Bible had to admit, as seen here, they played the new 5v5 update and they still don't think it's enough to bring them back, which yeah, I don't blame them for thinking that. Having more people on the map changes how much carnage and destruction is on the screen, I understand that, but it still doesn't change the fact that the first 2 minutes of every match in an FPS game, that I'm not shooting my guns but just grabbing generic stuff from chests. Like, they need to iterate and remove that slog of doing nothing but mindlessly opening things and bring the action to the forefront. Here, you know what? I will even give the developers an idea here to fix all of this, okay? So hear me out. Let me just game dev for a second, if you will. So you have the sword, right, that gets summoned in the middle of the map, right? And this sword is needed to start a siege, win the game and all that. Okay, how about this? The sword no longer is tied simply to a timer for when it can be summoned. It can still have a timer, but how about the sword is instead materialized not through just simply waiting around, but, you know, through combat. If you want that sword to spawn, you need to actively seek out the enemy and fight them. You shoot each other, you take enemies out. As enemies die, the energy from these skirmishes, they will supercharge the sword in the middle of the map. After a certain amount of lives are taken from both teams, let's say 20 lives, maybe 15, somewhere in there, right? The sword is now regenerated fully through the combat power of both teams attacking each other. Real gameplay that is forcing the game forward. Now you grab the sword, you start the siege mode. This would encourage people to seek out the enemy and fight, because it would also speed up the match and also lessen the time between just gathering and shooting. If you want to make it even more interesting, you could put little zones on the map. To keep it simple, think of it like domination in Call of Duty. The sword needs to spawn, but there's these mystical crystals that are labeled A, B, and C on the map, right? Circles in 3 spots on the map. So you go, you stand in them, you defend them from the enemy to capture them. The more of them you capture, the more boons your sword will have when you actually start the siege. Let's say you capture A. It gives you a boon where your bullets now do more damage to walls and stuff, better destructibility. If you capture that one, that's great, but the enemy then captures the B spot, right? That gives them now faster respawn time. So they have a boon, and so do you, but they're totally different. Okay, now the siege finally begins. Your team messed up, they get the sword, but they fall down, and now the enemy has started a siege on your base instead. The enemy is using defensive heroes like ice walls and stuff, but it's okay, because you got the boon to break those things quicker with your gun, so it evens out. Now there's strategy. You can't reasonably capture all 3 points without losing one of them, so which do you prioritize? Do you grab A to give you, like, better respawns, or do you grab B to have more environmental damage? Maybe the third one, as in C, gives quicker cooldowns to your abilities. So you have to strategize. Okay, we can send 3 of our 5 guys to B and like 2 to C. The enemy will probably grab A, but it's okay if we get the other boons instead. So we're going to defend those, we're going to charge our sword, and now we have these boons specifically for the whole team. So let's say, okay, you screwed up, you're getting steamrolled, the enemy team is just crushing you, dude. Now in your castle, the boons start spawning, like there's power-ups in like Doom 2016 on the map. You run around, you grab these, maybe they give you some more extra armor, they give you better damage for a certain amount of time, or you move faster for like another certain amount of time. So now you can push back and maybe survive that round because again, you're getting steamrolled. You survived, now the next round begins and oh crap, your castle has 40 out of 100 HP, that's not good. But it's okay, because on this round, the C domination point will actually heal your castle for 30 HP if your team is able to capture it. So, you fight like hell for that point because it will buy you time and more room for error. but the enemy is capturing A. And they got a one-time use now of some sort of like energy missile, sort of like a kill streak in Call of Duty, that they can now call down on a spot on the map to do a lot of damage and big destruction. So now you have to actively weigh your options to decide what to capture, what to defend, and where to send your units, as in the players. The siege begins. You now have more HP because you got that point, okay? You have the sword too. You're doing great. You plant it. The enemy sees you're on the B spot in their base, so they go, okay, I'm going to use this energy missile that I got because we captured A earlier in the match. It now blows up the whole area. You take some damage, but there's power-ups nearby. Maybe one gives you faster cooldowns or ultimate regain for like 10 or 15 seconds. So you grab that. Another teammate finds a healing mist power-up that they throw down to heal some people desperately. The enemy's about to launch their ultimate power attacks, but you grab the bubble shield power-up. So you throw it on the point, you run inside, you tank the hit. But the enemy's still coming, obviously. Your team powers are regenerating faster because you got that other power-up. So now you go on the offensive. You manage to push them back and you win the round. Rinse and repeat, and instead of just guns and armor to find in these chests now, you can also find boons. Oh, I found a boon that gives me more money per crystal that I break. Well, that's great because then I can get better weapons. But this other guy in your team, he found a boon that supercharges his melee damage, which means they can now risk getting closer with a shotgun and do a bruiser build that round specifically. But the enemy found a sniper boon. Now their headshots do more damage, but they also reload slower, so you gotta maneuver around that. Now you take all of this stuff I just mentioned, you synergize it, the game now has more variety. There's more things to plan for. There's more to weigh in the moment. No longer are we mindlessly spending 2 minutes collecting loot without ever shooting a gun. Now there's more powerful loot in the looting phase set between both the teams. Do you chase that loot that's further away from your base to get that great stuff, or do you want to stay back and be safe and grab what's nearby instead? Oh, I don't know. Actual player choice. But what I said will probably fall on deaf ears because after all, I'm just a fire-breathing pundit apparently. What do I know about game mechanics besides offering these devs solutions to their problems, right? Look, they can beg all they want for salvation, but all that will save them really in the end is just real tangible action. Fix the problems, expand the ideas, give reasons to play your game. You don't have a lot of time, but you have some at least. Like the clock is ticking, Wildlight, and it's time to stop begging and start proving why you deserve to exist. If you really want to survive in this space that is already so saturated, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, have a great day. And how would you fix Highguard as well? I mean, they can turn this around, but will they? I guess time will tell.